From unusual places to unforgettable experiences, come along as I take you on a journey to encounter the most incredible things before you die. Nestled discreetly among the outcroppings of modern society, the three-story Lizzie Borden Museum and Bed and Breakfast still stands a monument to one of the most horrific and still unsolved murder cases in history. The house now welcomes guests year-round to tour the interior and learn more about the mystery. You can also stay the night, and many believe the house is haunted by the ghosts of the Bordens. So I decided to head to Fall River, Massachusetts to experience this firsthand and stay the night with my wife Tricia, as well as my friend and coworker Thomas Dragonetti. Upon arriving, we met up with spirit medium Tiffany Rice and talked with her about her connection to the house and the spirits within.
Well, it was back in 2008, I believe. I've always been into the paranormal. So when I started doing my medium work, I was really involved with hanging around people that like to go and see things go bump in the middle of the night. So we decided to come here. This was my very first paranormal investigation.
Wow.
And it was my first paranormal experience as far as being able to stay in a historically haunted location. And it had such a legend to it.
Yeah.
You know, growing up, you hear the rhymes of the...
You used to say it on the playground all the time.
Exactly. So you hear the rhymes and you learn about it in history. Mm-hmm. This happened to be the second photographed murder in history. So, there's just so much behind it. And then don't forget, we have movies about it. We have documentaries about it. So it's everywhere. So if you're already interested in the paranormal, coming here is something that you need to do. It's something that you need to experience, especially, or even if you're just really interested in history.
Right.
I recommend coming here. For me, when I talk about a paranormal experience, it basically was me being able to connect to spirit.
Okay.
So
that first experience, were you able to connect?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes. And so it's funny because the very first place I was able to connect was actually in the basement. So you would think, oh, well, it must be in the room where the murders took place, or maybe it's in Lizzie's room. And no, it was in the basement. So I was totally confused because I thought I would have experienced something someplace else. But I had actually picked up the sensation of two children in spirit in the basement.
The Lizzie Borden house is filled with near replicas of furniture and decorations taken from crime scene photos and offers an extended tour to those who stay the night. We were walked through each room and ventured down into the basement to learn more about what happened on that fateful day on August 4th, 1892. While Andrew Borden was part of the Fall River High Society along with his second wife, Abby, they chose to live with his two daughters in this modest house on 2nd Street rather than in the wealthy hills. On the morning of August 4th, the maid, Bridget Sullivan, who the family called Maggie, was out in the backyard vomiting. Everyone in the house, including their uncle, John Morse, had been sick for a few days actually, except for the oldest daughter, Emma, who was away visiting friends. And Abby consulted a doctor the day before, concerned about poisoning. When Maggie came into the house to take a nap in her 3rd-floor room, she heard Andrew come home through the front door and heard the youngest daughter, Lizzie, remark from the front hall stairs. One thing you notice after being led through this house is its peculiar layout, with some staircases and rooms only being accessed from the front or back of the house. 10 minutes later, Lizzie yelled for Maggie to come downstairs. "Come quick, Father's dead. Someone's come in and killed him." Andrew was laying on the living room couch, apparently having a mid-morning nap, and had 11 axe wounds to his face and head. Maggie ran to fetch the local doctor, and when they returned, Lizzie asked Maggie to check on Abby, who she believed to be upstairs in her room. Mrs. Borden was found face down near her bed, 19 axe wounds in her back and the back of her head. Lizzie was arrested on August 11th, and the trial began in June of the following year. She was eventually acquitted in the most publicized trial in history at the time, and the circumstantial evidence has never led to the true identity of the killer. Talking with Tiffany Rice and the tour guides of the Lizzie Borden Museum, we learned a lot about the evidence that was found in the house and possible motives behind the murders. What gets me about this is him, poor Andrew, dead like this. Yet.
Exactly, or sleeping, right? You're sleeping, and then all of a sudden, someone comes up and does one of these.
First blow must have killed him, right?
It had to.
He never woke up.
Well, depending if the first blow was the one that actually split his eye and had his eye pop out, that could have been it too.
11 blows to the head. And what also gets me is that they never found a blood trail.
There's so many loopholes in this investigation.
It's incredible to me that even if they didn't find a loophole, or even if they didn't find a blood trail, how could you clean that up? How could you clean up that amount of blood?
Right, there had to have been blood splatter. If you're thinking about doing one of these, right?
Right.
So you have to pull up. So when you pull up, you get the blood splatter.
11 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It had to have been everywhere. I think it's more so Andrew that I'm connecting with. Because with Andrew, I feel like his personality was very straight up businessman. And I don't think he was that nurturing as a father.
Doesn't sound that way.
No. I feel like he just did whatever he wanted. And it didn't matter what anybody else said. He was just Andrew Borden.
Yeah.
And so his demeanor, I feel like I sense in this room.
Wow.
I know the very first time I went in here I had mentioned I'd gone with a paranormal group, my friends, and one of my friends actually felt someone do this down her back.
Oh my gosh.
In this room.
I don't know what it is about this room. I don't know if it's the wallpaper or if it's what transpired in this room or just the heaviness of knowing the history of this room, but I immediately feel dizzy.
So this is where I'm going to ask you, is there a particular area of the room where you feel more uneasy than others?
Well, I was in this space when I first came in, and I'm in this space again, and I'm feeling that way. So, I mean, if I go and kind of walk...
And this is, again...
Towards over here...
Focus on, how your feelings are, and focus on...
I feel worse over here.
Well, you are standing in front of two body boards that they use...
To do the autopsies.
To do autopsies,
which is crazy. And
yes.
Not
the actual.
No, but they are the
actual
way. This is what they would do autopsies on, and you could fold them up. You could take them with you. You could bring them to where you needed to make that happen. All of the bits could seep down and be collected.
Exactly. It's pieces of people. It's a lot of energy.
It's a lot of energy in this room. And
it really is.
I'm going to wake up tomorrow and eat breakfast in this room.
You're going to eat breakfast where they actually did, the autopsies and embalming. So, cheerio.
Cheerio.
Top of the morning to you.
Wow. A rusty axe head was found in the basement and was once considered to be the murder weapon until contradicting evidence was found from the autopsies. The house itself is known to be a hotspot of ghostly activity, and whether you believe in ghosts or not, you can definitely feel a different energy at the Lizzie Borden Museum. But would we encounter the spirits of the Bordens staying the night in their home? Thomas and I discussed our thoughts and feelings as we approached the witching hour that night. We've now immersed ourselves in Lizzie Borden. We're sitting on the 3rd floor.
Yeah, this is freaky.
of the Lizzie Borden house.
We're looking at the Fall River tragedy, courtroom drawings.
Yeah, what do you think about walking through this house and literally seeing the murder photos, in the same room where they found the bodies?
So that's the thing that, solidified it for me. Hearing the stories, whatever, one thing. Walking in the house was crazy, but then seeing not a reenactment, the literal photo of this dude's head caved in, missing his face. I was like, okay, this is real. This really happened. This is not a joke.
Yeah.
This is not fake. I don't care if you believe in ghosts or not. Something
terrible happened.
Yeah, and so like you guys were talking about earlier, like that energy, whether you believe in ghosts or not, like when he was getting his head bashed in, like negative energy was pouring out into
where? Into where? It
Yeah.
has to go somewhere. Yeah. Energy cannot be created or destroyed.
But hearing like the details for the first time and standing in the room where that shit happened, yeah, it blew all my expectations out of the water, and we don't know what's going to happen. Like, it's 1 o'clock. There are a ton of photos of orbs and energies and faces. Oh, yo, when we saw that face, the face in the basement.
In the basement, yeah.
The light doesn't really go inside of this. So it's dark in there. So you have to shoot a photo with a flash. And he's like, I'm not saying this is supernatural because every time you take a photo, it shows up. We even painted over the wall and it still shows up. It is legit a face. There is a face with a messed up eyeball in the basement. Like that, I was like, yo, this is crazy.
There are various ways to try and make contact with the dead if you aren't connected to the spirit world like Tiffany Rice, including Ouija boards and dowsing rods. In fact, there was a Ouija board in the room where Andrew's body was found that was off limits to touch because of the evil messages it had produced in the past. But I tried my luck with dowsing rods, which are devices that are usually used to find water and wells on unknown property. While many of us tried this method that night, I was the only one they moved for, and I apparently had made contact multiple times with the spirit of Emma Borden. Then, at 3 a.m., Thomas, Trisha, and I went downstairs to sit on the infamous couch and try once more to make contact. I'm just gonna go right for it. Am I talking to Emma?
No.
Am I talking to John?
The father.
Am I talking to Andrew? Am I talking to Lizzie? Hi, Lizzie.
Huh.
Do you know who killed your father?
She tapped you on the shoulder. You keep getting tapped on your right shoulder.
Okay. I also left the audio recorder on all night in the room where my wife and I slept. While most of the audio is littered with noise from trucks on the street and my own snoring at times, it did pick up this unidentified sound at 4 a.m., less than 5 minutes after my wife and I said goodnight. Was that the haunting sound of a child, possibly the spirits of the neighborhood children that Tiffany Rice first connected to? Or was it just a weird sound emanating from me as I passed into a deeper REM sleep? Upon waking up the next day, we were treated to breakfast in the dining room, which was unsettling for me, and we bookended our trip with 2 bonus places. First, we headed to Maplecroft, the home that Lizzie and Emma bought after the murders, situated on the hills in the rich part of town where the girls had always wanted to live. The family that owns the house now is working towards making it a museum and bed and breakfast as well, and you will be able to tour Lizzie and Emma's rooms, which are creepy in their own rights. Finally, with her strong connection to the house and the spirits of the Bordens, Tiffany Rice was an invaluable resource that provided a lot more insight to everything we learned on that incredible tour. So it surprised me when I found out that Tiffany had never visited the Bordens' grave, as Andrew, Abby, Emma, and Lizzie herself are all buried in the local cemetery a few miles from the home. So we ventured out to capture Tiffany's first encounter with the final resting place of this family wrought with disaster. And with a connection to the spirit like you have, Is it stronger in a graveyard because there's so many of them?
Families, yes. I always say it's like the spirit bus. So when I'm in a graveyard and there's so many people here, it's literally like standing in the middle of New York City. So as far as having that stronger connection, absolutely.
Would it be harder then, like, if you wanted to connect straight to Lizzie right here? Would it be much harder to do that as opposed to, like, in her house?
Not necessarily.
It's just focusing on
Just
that?
focusing in. Exactly.
You want to walk up to her grave?
Yes, I do.
Let's walk up to her grave.
I'm excited to finally see it. Oh, wow.
Yeah. Do you feel that the Borden's here? Do you feel any kind of presence?
Well, I do feel I'm the first one to say it's okay if you don't go and visit your loved one because they're around you all the time. But being here and actually seeing her name and seeing Emma's name next to her, the emotion that I get is just this unbelievable feeling of peace. So whether it's straight up from her energy of her physical body being in this ground, or whether it's just that strong connection that I've had with her from communicating with her so much and going back and forth from her homes, I do get that strong sense of peace that she is at rest.
If you ever find yourself near Fall River, Massachusetts, you should definitely take the tour at the Lizzie Borden Museum and Bed and Breakfast. Don't forget to stop in the gift shop for a souvenir axe, and if you need a place to stay for the night, make sure you ask Emma and Lizzie if it's okay. The museum tour is filled with so much information and an incredible look at not only the horrific events of August 4th, 1892, but also what life was like back then as well. You can pore through binders full of newspaper clippings and crime scene photos, along with evidence of haunted experiences, and who knows, maybe you will uncover a new lead in the mystery. Make sure to book your room in advance and visit this incredible house at least once before you die.